Assalamu alaikum. Airbnb is an online marketplace that allows people to rent out their homes to other people who are looking for a place to stay in their area. Instead of traveling like tourists and feeling like outsiders, guests on Airbnb can stay in neighborhoods where people live, have authentic experiences, live like locals, and spend time with locals in approximately 100,000 different cities around the world. Today, there are more than 4 million hosts on the Airbnb website offering everything from a private room in their home to luxury villas, from one night to several months at a time. In their 13 years, Airbnb hosts have welcomed more than 825 million guest arrivals and have cumulatively earned more than $110 billion. Airbnb is going public soon, probably in the early part of December. And because I like to give viewers of this channel an edge, I stayed up all of last night reading their S1 filing in order to give you my analysis of Airbnb's halalness and their prospects as an investment so that you can be prepared when it eventually goes public. Now, before I start, if you're looking to buy stocks in the United States, I'd recommend M1 Finance. Check out the link in the description to support the channel. Also, if you'd like to familiarize yourself with the constituents of the Practical Islamic Finance Portfolio, which basically consists of all of the stocks that I've spoken favorably of on this channel, you can check out the Practical Islamic Finance Portfolio linked to in the description below. And you already know this video is going to be amazing, so do me a favor and gently tap that like button. No need for violence, no need for smashing like other YouTubers will encourage you to do. Just gently tap the like button. And without further ado, let's get started. Now, as usual, we'll start our analysis of Airbnb with our analysis of its halalness, because after all, if it's not halal, then there's no real need for us to go into whether or not it's going to be a promising investment from a financial perspective. It's important to note here that Airbnb doesn't actually own any properties for rental. They simply earn their revenue from collecting a commission on all of the bookings that are done on their site. Now, I don't see anything inherently wrong in either the bookings that are facilitated on the Airbnb site or the commission that Airbnb is collecting from those bookings. Basically, through their site, Airbnb is enabling the average person to get into the mini hotel business, and I see nothing inherently wrong with this. So in terms of how B&B earns its revenue, I am comfortable with their business model from a halalness perspective. Now let's move on to Airbnb's financials. Now, as you can expect, bookings on Airbnb have been hit quite substantially by the recent pandemic. If people aren't traveling, people aren't using Airbnb's site to book rooms, and Airbnb is not making any money. Now, as a result, Airbnb has had to raise a lot of debt to secure itself financially during this period. Specifically, it has raised around $1 billion in debt twice, at around a 10% interest rate in April of 2020. This has substantially affected Airbnb's relationship with paying interest, which I've summarized in the following table. As you know, I like to look at interest income versus revenue and interest expense versus total expense to discern what type of relationship a company has with interest and whether or not the business is reliant on interest to function. You can see with regards to interest income, it has been rather steady over the years for Airbnb at between 1 and 2% of total revenue. As for interest expense, it was virtually zero up to 2020. And then, as we mentioned, it had to take out debt. And this has pushed up the ratio of interest expense to total expense to around 3.5%. Now, I still think it is at a level that doesn't imply a reliance on interest. I am further encouraged by the fact that Airbnb as a business has a historically very low reliance on interest, and I expect it to return to these low levels after the pandemic. Now, as it relates to Airbnb's impact, I think they've had a positive impact in the lives of millions of hosts who have been able to monetize their properties in a way that they previously hadn't been able to prior to Airbnb. And on the other hand, travelers have been able to experience different countries and different cultures in ways that they had previously not been able to. And hopefully, this has enhanced these travelers' understanding and appreciation for these different cultures that they've gotten exposure to as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the generous Quran, translated into English, O people, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Indeed, the most noble amongst you in the sight of Allah are the most pious. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing and acquainted. And I think Airbnb can be a tool for this ta'aruf, for this getting to know one another that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages. Now, when you're talking about a business wherein strangers are opening up their homes to other strangers, there is going to be some scandals along the road. And Airbnb has had its fair share of scandals. So, for example, in October of 2019, 5 people were shot and killed at a party house in Orinda, California, just outside of San Francisco, that was rented via Airbnb and was a known problem. As part of its response, Airbnb announced a global ban on all parties and events at Airbnb listings, including a cap on occupancy at 16. There was another scandal related to fraudulent listings on Airbnb. Basically, houses that didn't really exist were being listed for rent, and Airbnb responded by announcing that it will begin the process of verifying all 7 million listings on its platform, and by December 15th of 2020, each home and host will be verified by Airbnb for accuracy of the listing, including accuracy of photos, addresses, and listing details, and quality standards, including cleanliness, safety, and basic home amenities. So I think that Airbnb's management has responded relatively well to these scandals and attempted to solve the root causes for the problems that arose. Now, Airbnb's management is not perfect by any stretch, but I do think that they try to do the right thing and they try to operate in an ethical manner. And so based on my analysis thus far of Airbnb's business, its financials, and the way it is operated, I am comfortable investing in Airbnb from a halalness perspective. Now let's talk about their prospects as an investment. Fundamentally, I think that the recent pandemic will likely help Airbnb more than it hurts it in the long run. And the reason I think this is twofold. In the time of the pandemic and for some period after it, while people remain cognizant of social distancing, home rentals are perceived to be safer than hotel rentals because home rentals are exposed to much less human traffic than hotels are, and checking into a home rental requires far less human interaction than checking into a hotel does. And the second reason why I think this pandemic may have a positive effect on Airbnb is because since people have gotten acclimated to remote work more and more, this means that longer duration trips have become a lot more accessible. And home rentals are a lot more affordable than hotels are when you're talking about long duration trips. So I was actually thinking to myself, why not, since I'm working from home basically all of the time, why not go for a month to some state in the United States where I've always wanted to go and see and just sit there for a month and just work from there. All I need is basically an internet connection. And I'm pretty certain that a lot of people are thinking as I am. And what is the first service I'm going to go to if I'm looking to stay a month, let's say in Montana? I'm going to go to Airbnb first. And if you look at the numbers, they corroborate my thesis about some of the advantages that Airbnb may enjoy because of this pandemic. Airbnb displayed clear strength in domestic travel, closer to home travel, and longer duration trips during the pandemic. In gross bookings for the first 9 months of 2020, Airbnb is down 39%. Booking holdings is down 63%. and Expedia is down 65% versus the same period last year. Even with third quarter revenue decline, the period was Airbnb's second biggest ever, behind only the same quarter from 2019. And because the company slashed its sales and marketing costs by 74%, Airbnb turned a profit in the third quarter of $219 million. And in terms of their financial health, from 2016 to 2019, free cash flow for Airbnb had been positive. Now, in 2020, because of the pandemic, free cash turned negative, $500 million in the first 9 months of 2020. However, Airbnb has more than enough cash to get through the pandemic, around $4.5 billion to be exact. Now let's talk about Airbnb's valuation. Back in 2019, when Airbnb's annual revenue was around $5 billion, it was valued at around $30 billion. Basically 6 times sales, which I think is a fair valuation. Now, in March of this year, when travel basically stopped, some investors were able to buy shares in Airbnb at a valuation of around $18 billion. I think the first year wherein travel is going to go back to normal is probably going to be 2022. In which case, I think Airbnb will post numbers just as good, if not better, than the 2019 numbers. And eventually, I think Airbnb will be a $10 to $15 billion annual revenue company, which will impute a $60 to $90 billion valuation. That is in the next 3 to 5 years. So if Airbnb goes public at a $30 billion valuation or less, I like the stock. I probably am going to pick up a few shares. If it goes public at above $30 billion, then I'm probably going to wait until the dust settles on this second wave of the pandemic before I consider buying into Airbnb stock. Don't get me wrong, I think Airbnb is a fantastic company and one that I'll probably own eventually. I'm just not sure about buying it if it's not at a discount during the pandemic. So in conclusion, I think Airbnb is a great company to own if you can get it at a good price. I hope you found this video beneficial. Make sure you do your own due diligence. If you enjoyed anything in this video, do leave a like, subscribe for more content. Check out M1 Finance if you'd like to buy stocks in the United States. Until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.